Hello, everybody. Welcome to the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability live chat. I'm Dr. James Nugent. I am one of your lecturers here in the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability. And I'm really excited to have all of you here today. We are facing some of the most pressing issues that humanity has faced when we talk about things like climate change. When we talk about things like species extinction, we're facing the 6th mass extinction, unprecedented levels of deforestation, the coral reefs are bleaching, and the list seems to go on and on. And one of the things I tell students in this program is that we need to have the brightest minds working on these problems. And these are very complex problems. They're interdisciplinary problems. And so I'm really excited that you've decided to join our family here in the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability, where we have brought together a very interdisciplinary team of professors and students who are all keen to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. And I also want to add to that besides solving the problems, what you see and what you experience depends on what you know. And I think what you'll find going through this program is that as you learn even more about ecology, about how the environment works, you're going to deepen your appreciation for just how awe-inspiring our world really is. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for joining the School for Environment, Resource, and Sustainability. I want to start with a bit of housekeeping and just remind you that we're going to record this session. So a copy of the event will be shared in your Waterloo Ready Learn course within the next week. So if you miss something, you can always go back to the video. I also want to just acknowledge that we are situated as a university on lands that are deeply connected to Indigenous peoples who have historically lived and who are currently living in this territory. These groups include the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on what's called the Halaman Tract, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that throughout your studies. It's the land promised to the 6 nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River. So, like I've said, I'm James Nugent, and I am a lecturer here, which means I'm a professor that specializes in teaching, and we have a few of those. So you're lucky to have some full-time lecturers here at the University of Waterloo. And we're going to introduce you to other people that we have joining us today to do some panel presentations, and we're going to just turn to those introductions now. So, Jill, if you don't mind, we can take down, we probably take down the PowerPoint for a sec, and we will allow our panelists to introduce us. So probably we will start with Patricia. Patti, sorry, goes by Patti. Patti, are you here? Okay, we're not hearing Patti. So let's come back to Patti. Maybe there's a microphone issue there. Maybe we could start with Ishani and Carla, who are your student reps on your student association.
So hi everyone, I'm Ishani. I'm one of the co-presidents of ERSSA this term, and I'll be talking with you about student life.
Hi, I'm Carla. I'm also one of the co-presidents on ERSSA. Thanks for joining us.
Right, thanks very much. And we also have Benjamin. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm a third-year co-op student working with Associate Nugent in the Faculty of Environment, working on student engagement.
Great. Thanks, Ben. And Roaha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roaha, and I'm a third-year STAR student, and I'm currently working with the department for my co-op term. And I'll be presenting the co-op placement profiles and talking about the peer mentorship program.
Great. Thank you very much, Roaha. Patti, are you able to try again? Okay, Jill's going to work with Patti to try to figure out what's going on her end, but we will introduce Patti later on. She's your undergraduate advisor, and so she can help you with all sorts of questions you have about logistics around, how do you register for courses, taking other majors, and minors and diplomas and things like that. So we will hear from Patti later on. So what we're going to do today, we're going to first talk a little bit about, why it's important to study environment, resource, and sustainability. And then we're going to, actually, we might come back to that at the end too, because I'm hoping that Maren might be able to join us, who's one of your professors. But we'll do a little introduction to that. And then we'll hear from Ben, who's going to talk about experiential learning opportunities, of which there's lots of. I think one of the most exciting things about our program here is just how many experiential learning opportunities there are, from field courses to different things right here on campus. And so we're going to hear about that and what that means in an online sort of environment. Roaha is going to talk to us about co-op placements for those of you who are enrolled in co-op. And then we're going to hear from Ishani and Carla talking about student life, and they're going to welcome you into the student body here. And Patti's going to talk about important information around registration and course selection. And then we're going to end by talking about what's a really exciting thing we're getting going for this fall, which is a peer mentorship program. And so if you have any questions you're going to be able that you haven't had answered or that you forgot information, you're going to be able to work with your peer mentor to answer those questions. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to maybe start, right there. Professor Maren's not going to be with us today, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown about why I think it's really important for us to study the environment, resources, and sustainability. I think probably lots of you are already oriented towards wanting to solve some of the key pressing problems that the world is facing. And the pandemic has really surfaced for the entire world just how precarious we live on this planet. And it has really, I think, shone a spotlight on a number of things, including how vulnerable we are as a species, reminding us as a species that we are animals at the end of the day, and that we work and live in close proximity to wildlife, which ultimately causes these viruses, but also that we have very complex governing systems, and that there's a relationship between how we solve problems in almost every other aspect of our everyday life, our government, businesses, all aspects of society have to come together to address very pressing global problems such as a pandemic, but that could also be climate change, biodiversity loss, or deforestation, or any of the other problems that we face as a species. And so one of the great things about the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability is that it is a school. And what that means is that we have professors that actually come from different disciplines. So we have professors that come from biological conservation. We have professors like Maren, who is a soil scientist. But we also have professors that come from the social sciences. And so we have professors that look at governance of food and food systems. My own work, I look at social movements. And so we really also not only look at the physical environment, but also the way that the physical environment interacts with society and social systems. And that becomes very important when we think about pressing issues around environmental justice and environmental racism. And that basically means the distribution of environmental goods and environmental bads. And we know that they're not fairly distributed around the world. And so we try to understand, identify and understand that uneven distribution and think about how we can solve those problems. So I think one of the strengths of our school is that very interdisciplinary team that we've assembled here. And we hold a lot of events within the school and within the Faculty of Environment where you can hear from all different types of perspectives on environmental problems. Because again, you're bringing together even economics, right? So we have courses in ecological economics. I teach a course on war in the environment. And so there's really so many different ways to understand, because the environment touches us all in so many different ways. There are so many different perspectives to shine light on the nature of the problem, and again, what the solution is. And University of Waterloo, I think, even more than almost any other university, is very geared towards finding solutions. And so although we have to have a critical perspective, and we teach a critical perspective on these problems, there's a lot of efforts underway at the University of Waterloo to actually promote solving these problems and rising to the challenge. And so, University of Waterloo has a lot of incubators, a lot of startup incubators, and a lot of different approaches. If you're interested in solving some problems by starting your own business, there's support for that type of thing, or using technology, there's support for that type of thing. And so there's a lot of opportunities to really get involved and be creative. And so I think it's a really exciting place in that sense as well. So what we're going to do, I might have some more things to say about the school in general, but I want you to first hear from some of the students, and because they were in your shoes not that many years ago, only a couple, in some cases 1 or 2 years ago, they were in your shoes, and so they can tell you firsthand what it's like coming into the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability. And I also want to just say that if you have any questions, what you can do is you can type your questions into the chat, which is on the right side of your screen. So we have people working in the background who will be able to assemble all of your questions, and we're going to try to answer those today. If you've already submitted your questions, we have some of those, and I'm going to make sure that we leave some time at the end in case we don't answer the questions you have, because ultimately that's why we're here today. So please do type in your questions in the right-hand side in the chat, and then we're going to come back and answer those as we go, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn over the presentation to Ben, who is going to talk about some of the experiential learning opportunities here at the University of Waterloo in the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'll be talking about 3 different areas of experiential learning that are available to students. And so I'll kind of list each of them, and I'll go into more detail. So one of these is the Ecology Lab, and they're incredible. They're like a one-stop resource center and a learning space. They have lots of different learning opportunities going on there, from supporting your academics and also your extracurriculars. The next is Living Lab for Sustainability, which is a partnership-based initiative that looks to solve sustainability issues and test them on campus. And last is courses, and so I'll be talking about courses with an experiential learning lab section and also field courses. And so now I'll fill you in on more of those details in order. So here we have the Ecology Lab, and they're great. They do so many different things and are involved in a lot of different groups. So they can support your field activities, your courses, and your projects. And the staff there have a knowledge in lots of different areas of labs that I'm happy to share with you. You can rent equipment, such as field guides, or if you want to borrow something like binoculars or some piece of hardware you want to bring it with you into the field to either your own practice or support your coursework, they're happy to lend that out to you as well. And they also share their expertise. And I've been in the Ecology Lab, and they're very knowledgeable. And one of the ways they do this is through workshops and tutorials, which they have now started to offer online to adapt. And one of these, for example, is the Get Back to Nature course that we've been sharing on Twitter. And also, they also run some student-led workshops out of the Ecology Lab as well for things like learning about different, like benthic organisms, for example, or pollinators. And so there's lots to learn. Here we have Living Lab for Sustainability. And so, as I said before, Living Lab is it's an initiative based on making connections between students, faculty, and campus partners. And the goal is to find a sustainability issue and test it out on campus, almost as if it was in a living laboratory. And so some opportunities here include environmental student groups, clubs, there's lots of different events, whether it's a presenter or somewhere where you can build your knowledge on something. They have experiential learning programs that you can join as well. And there's also lots of hands-on courses. And so I'll be talking. So for these courses, there's two different kinds where you can get some experiential learning happening. So one of these is a course with a lab section. And for example, field ecology, you would have a weekly lecture, and then you would also have a weekly lab where you'd be getting outside. You might learn about some vegetative sampling techniques, water sampling, soil analysis, and that's offered year-round. So here we have some students in the spring who are using quadrats to do some sampling on a square meter basis, and here we have some students taking water samples for analysis back in the ecology lab. And then we also have something like a field course, and so the outdoor field courses are normally offered in the springtime, and they're more immersive, usually run as a block course, anywhere between a week to 3 weeks, where you'll be outside a lot, getting lots of practice, working in the lab, working with others, and getting a chance to meet some professionals in the field. And so I'll just show you some more pictures of these. So here's some more pictures. We have some students getting out into the field. This picture is from Laurel Creek on campus, the second picture there. And then we also have, we also take students to different natural areas as well. And if you'd like to find out more, we've just shared some resources here to their either their social media or web pages. And yeah, those are those are 3 great ways to get involved in experiential on campus.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. And as you can see, there are really so many exciting opportunities to do some hands-on learning here in your ERS program in the Faculty of Environment. And as Ben mentioned, we even have an entire ecology lab that is just focused. Their main job is just to help you learn about ecology. There's a woodworking shop on campus, so there's a lot of really great opportunities. And a lot of these courses have actually shifted, despite the pandemic, into an online version. And so there's some really neat experimentation happening with students doing sort of a field ecology of a local park that they might go to, or even of your own backyard. And that's actually really important because you know, the more that we can understand even our own local environments and get a better, richer understanding of those, the more we can appreciate some of the bigger systems at play. And I just wanted to remind you that if you do have any questions, please type them in the box in the right-hand side there, and you can just have them addressed to all attendees, and then everybody will see what your question is. If you only want the panelists to see your question, you could select it to only speak to the panelists. But it'd be nice if everyone can see the question so that other people will have the same question. There really is no stupid question here. If you have a question, I guarantee you that 10 other people will. So please just post it in the chat, and we will try to answer those as we go. And I also wanted I forgot to mention that for those parents and supporters that are joining us today, thank you very much. And I know that you play a very important role in your students' transition. So we encourage you to sign up for our Parent and Supporter Monthly newsletter. And here you're going to receive great tips and information on supporting your student throughout the first year as a Waterloo Warrior. So if you would like some more information, I posted a link there in the chat box, but we can get you that as well. If you have any questions, please get in touch with us. So next up, we are going to hear from Roaha, who has been compiling some experiences that students have been having on co-op placement. And so I will turn that over to Roaha.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk about the different examples of co-op placements that SUR students have had to give you an idea of the kinds of opportunities that are available. So starting off, we have Jane, who worked at the University of Waterloo as a lab assistant in the ecology lab. And this role involved her assisting the ecology lab with providing core support for the different courses they offer. And through this role, she was able to gain experience in lab safety, field research, ecology skills, as well as social media management and project management. Next, we have Abraham, who worked as an environmental management co-op student at Infrastructure Ontario. And this position involved him managing client project proposals to ensure that the due diligence accountability requirements were met. And he also did report writing and site visits. Through this placement, he gained a better understanding of the due diligence process and approvals process for infrastructure projects in Ontario. And he also developed time management skills, project management skills, and communication skills. Next, we have Alessia, who worked as a student at Environment and Climate Change Canada, and she was an environmental coordinator. And this position involved data management, report writing, and document translations and editing. So some of the things she learned during her term were more about what Environment and Climate Change Canada does and how policies are implemented through the federal government, as well as how to rely on her coworkers for help when she needs it and to learn from their experiences. Next, I'm going to talk about one of my previous co-op terms. I was working as a Northern and Remote Energy student at Natural Resources Canada. So for this position, I helped with the completion of program documents, and I also did research and summarized my findings, which was used to help inform policy decisions. So some of the things I learned during this term was a better understanding of the implementation process and challenges associated with renewable energy and how decision-making happens within the government. And I also gained a better understanding of Indigenous issues that occur in remote communities. So the last example we have is Junie, and she worked as a biologist at Natural Resource Solutions. So this role involved conducting field work as well as analyzing the data she collected during the field work and preparing reports based on her findings. So some of the things she learned during her placement were adaptability, open-mindedness, and flexibility, since the nature of field work means that there might be unforeseen circumstances that you have to adjust to. And she also gained greater confidence when it comes to facing these kinds of unknown challenges.
Okay, thanks so much, Roaha. And that was just a brief taste of some of the many opportunities that students have had through the co-op programs. And I know some of you aren't taking co-op, and that's okay too, but I did want to make sure that we covered some of the different experiences that students have had on co-op. So thanks very much, Roaha. And now we get to hear from your student reps. So Ishani and Carla.
So hi everyone, welcome to Waterloo University. So being an incoming student or a first year student can be really daunting. I remember my first year as something that I was so nervous about because it was so entirely different from high school, so entirely different from things I've experienced in life. But I learned that it actually was a great new experience. You really got to meet a lot of new people, you got to learn things that really mattered, and really have a part in changing things too. This picture of Carla and I is actually us in the fall as orientation leaders. Believe it or not, we met in orientation and we've been friends ever since. So really go out and try to work through your online format to try to meet a bunch of first years because you'll make fast friends. And now we even run our student association together, so it worked out for the best. Also, right over there is EV3 that we have to give a quick shout out to because it is the best building. It is amazing. I'm not taking that back, and no one's going to argue with me. So I guess we can move on to the next slide. So what is ERSSA? So ERSSA is your student association for ERS students. It literally means ERS Student Association. We work to improve the experience as ERS students, connect you to people, and sort of let you have a more working hand in things you care about. Consider this. So you might be able to make friends and have fun. You can communicate with different CERS students, staff, the Environment Student Society, which is ESS. This means that you can have news relevant to you as environment students, but you can also represent yourself in front of other students. It's ongoing work with staff. Please join other student societies and clubs. So go out to ESS things, go out to campus compost events. All the environment student societies are really dead set on making change on campus, and they might really affect your work on later life. And once more, you can make a lot of friends. Additionally, we talk about issues relating to your education and the environment. So how we can alter your education for things that you want to learn as well. Which brings us to the next point. So we've recently started this thing called the ERS Undergraduate Education Committee. It's a new committee in your student association dedicated to making changes in the ERS program to suit student needs and interests. We're working on multiple projects right now. Our current project focuses on bringing BIPOC perspectives within our curriculum. We believe it's really important to diversify and also learn from different educational experiences and sort of expand our own. We meet with staff about these curriculum changes, and we try to examine local issues and put it in our own education. You don't have to pay any student society fees to join, so please consider joining the committee we run through ERSSA as well.
All right, so the next thing we'll talk about is some of the events that ERSSA runs. So just a brief overview of what we've done in the past. And we continue to do social, academic, as well as sustainability-themed events. So in the first picture, you have a little example of a sustainability workshop where we sewed little cutlery holders and we decorated cloth bags, as well as in the second picture, you see a coffee house event where different students were able to showcase their musical talents. This was a collaboration between ERSSA as well as different program student societies, so we can all intermingle and meet people from different programs. And we continue to be hosting things online, which we've started in spring term, and it's been pretty fun and it's looking good. So some examples of things that we've done, we've had a Pride workshop, which is pictured there. So this was a workshop that Ishani and I actually ran. We just wanted to highlight that environment is for everyone, no matter your gender, your orientation, your color. We're all here. There's all sorts of environmentalists. You're all welcome. As well as we've had other students host their own workshops. They come to us with their interests. They're sort of our student experts. So we've had plant ID workshops, WASP workshops. It's really whatever the students feel that they're interested in and that they want to highlight to other students. We also had a trivia event hosted by an alumni. So that was a really fun experience to get to interact over this platform. I know it might seem weird, but even through these online platforms, we can have a really fun time, and it was just a great competitive and fun energy to be able to see everyone again and do trivia. And for the future, we have online workshops going forward. We want to make that more relevant to the first years in the fall. So you're going to be seeing things like a Meet the Professors event in October. That's going to be a way for you all to meet professors in a more casual environment so that you're not intimidated and so you can see that professors are people too. As well as we will have a first year event that we're working on. And the things that we've usually done in previous years have been co-op workshops, academic sessions, and again, socials. We're keeping that all just through online platforms now. And again, whatever ideas you have, they're great to bring to us. This is a great way to get involved in planning, in events planning, because we're student run, so you're going to be able to see anything that you're interested in. And now I'll talk a little bit about the atmosphere of ERSSA. So it's a pretty small, tight-knit group. Most people in ERSSA would describe it to you as like a chill environment. It's pretty laid back. So it would be a good idea, as Ishani mentioned, to meet other first years, because it's just an easy way to make friends and everybody's looking to see what different groups are. So at the beginning of the year, we usually get a lot of people checking out the group. So that's a great thing to see what we're all about, as well as meeting other years, like upper years, because they're able to, you know, have these sort of connections in a more, in a less intimidating space. And then, you know, anything that you might have, any school questions or co-op things or housing questions. It's great to be able to, find other people in this network of students that have more experience than you that can help you out with that. As well as we've got leadership positions available to first years, so you can learn different organizational and leadership skills. You can run our social media, work on our events, or you can just attend as a general member, where you can take in any of the news that we're giving and you can vote on our issues and have your opinions heard. So I just want to add, as Ishani said, we really want to highlight, even if ERSSA might not be your thing, please do check out other groups like Campus Compost, Sustainable Campus Initiative, and whatever else you're interested, try to look on social media. There's still lots of things going, even though we're distanced. And just to end off, we have a slide with our social media on it. So you can check out our Facebook and Instagram. As well, you will be invited to the first meeting of ERSSA through your UWaterloo email account. So you'll have all the information you need for that. Otherwise, we tried to keep our meetings available on Facebook. So thank you for listening, and we'd love to see you in the fall.
Okay, thank you so much, Ishani and Carla. And wow, what an amazing amount of things that go on in terms of the social life at the school here. And one of the things I remember from my undergrad years was that, honestly, probably about 60% at least of what I learned was actually outside the classroom. And just as you're coming into a sizable but a smaller, essentially, program where you'll be able to get to know different people and you'll make friends, a lot of what I learned was actually from those friends and from my peers. And not only reviewing and discussing what we're learning in class, but in taking part in the clubs and activities that are going on and learning from those as well. So thanks so much, Ishani and Carla, for all of the work you're doing here at ERSSA. And I really encourage all of you who are tuning in, who are coming into the school, to join ERSSA, to get involved, whether just participating in meetings or helping or in activities, fun activities, or whether getting involved in a leadership role. So thank you very much. So now we're going to actually turn things over to Patti, who is your undergraduate program advisor. And I'll let Patti introduce herself and talk to you about what she does and some important information that you'll be needing. Also, before we do that, I'm going to be putting a link in the chat there for the ecology lab, because I did mention the ecology lab, which is a fantastic hands-on ecology lab, state-of-the-art, that can help you to learn about ecology. Someone mentioned plant IDing. That's one of the courses you might take, but they also help us run our field courses. So you can find out more about the ecology lab at that link, and perhaps after the presentations today. So I'm going to turn it over to Patti. Welcome, Patti.
Thanks, James. Can everyone see me and hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, a little bit of technical difficulty earlier today, but anyway, I'd like to welcome all you new students to the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability. I'm your school program advisor, and you'll be in touch with me a lot over your time in our school. Basically, I help you with all things related to your record, including course enrollment, dropping courses, special circumstances that might affect your studies, graduation requirements, and many other questions that you might have. If I don't have the answer, I can certainly point you in the right direction or the right resource to answer your question. So welcome. Okay, so just looking at your fall term schedule, most of you should have 3 courses on for fall. Those are the 3 core courses: ERS 100, ENVS 178, and ENVS 195. Normally, students take 5 courses per term, and the plan is based on 8 terms of study with 5 courses per term for a total of 40 courses to graduate. The electives that our students mostly choose are geography, biology, earth science, or the wide array of arts courses. However, you can choose any elective that you meet the prerequisite for. Okay, so important dates. There is a link of important dates, and I believe I sent that out to you already in my welcome email, but I can resend that for everyone. Next week, August 4th, 5th, is when you can see your class scheduling quest, and you should have an appointment then if you feel you want to make changes to your record for fall. You can make changes to your fall term right up until September. Classes begin September 8th and end December 7th. And winter term, you don't need to worry about that just yet. You'll select your courses for winter term in October. Some of our students like to add an additional credential to their degree, and that could be in the form of a minor, which is normally 10-term courses in another discipline, a diploma, and there are several of these as well, but the common ones for ERS students are the Environmental Assessment Diploma, the Ecological Restoration Diploma, and the Sustainability Diploma. There are also options available, and that's a different number of courses for each one, but it's approximately 5 to 8 courses for an option. And the option and the minors both actually appear on your graduation diploma. The EA diploma and the restoration diplomas are separate parchments, so you would receive that in addition to your graduation diploma. Anyway, all of these credentials are listed in the undergrad calendar at the link showing here. And again, I'm happy to provide that link for anyone that's interested. Credentials such as these, students don't normally start until their second year of study. However, some of them have courses that require first-year courses. So you might check into that if you think there's something there that might be of interest, and you might sign up for an elective in that area in first year. Anyways, again, welcome everyone, and you'll be speaking and contacting me a lot over your time, and I'm happy to help. So any questions you have, just please direct them to me.
Great, thank you so much, Patti. And Patti really will be your lifesaver in so many ways in terms of trying to navigate all of the course calendars and some of the bureaucracy at the university. Every university has a bureaucracy. It's just the nature of a university. And that can feel overwhelming at first as you're trying to understand, where do I find information about my courses? How do I register, or how do I combine courses in different majors? I know somebody had a question about, you know, how do you combine majors and that type of thing. So if you have any questions at all about that, Patti is the person to ask, and she's an absolute wizard when it comes to understanding how this university functions. So please do reach out to her if you have any kind of questions, or if you're not sure about how to combine different things, or say you want to take a course in another department or another faculty. You can do that. And one of the exciting things about our program is that we really focus on what's called transdisciplinary learning. So it's actually more than interdisciplinary learning. It seems like a small distinction, but what the difference is that we're not just trying to bring different perspectives on a problem from different disciplines. We're actually trying to say, well, you know, these perspectives, when they come together, are greater than the sum of the parts. So we actually come up with a whole new kind of analysis when we bring different perspectives together. So we try to synthesize new knowledge through that. So that's really exciting, transdisciplinary learning. Our faculty, and in particular our school, is particularly good at doing that, and particularly well situated to doing that. Not too many faculties or departments actually do that kind of learning. So we do encourage you to, if you have other interests. You know, one of the things that I wish I knew when I was going through my undergrad or coming into my undergrad is that, you know, if you have a couple different strong interests, as a lot of our ERS students do, because you're such amazing students that you have multiple interests, well, maybe talk with Patti about, you know, how could you still pursue those interests in other ways, right? So, for example, one of my students was very interested in theater. She did a lot of community theater and drama in her undergrad or in her high school, and so she wanted to do some of that in her undergrad. So there are many opportunities, both curricular as well as extracurricular, to get involved in drama and theater, for example. So you know, you don't have to drop all of your interests because you're taking some courses or you're down a certain program. If you have other interests, there's definitely ways to combine those. So I wish I had learned that earlier in my undergrad career, but please reach out to Patti and talk to other students about that. Okay, so what we're going to do now, thanks so much, Patti, for that information. It's a lot of information. So one of the things that we want to emphasize here today, obviously we have an incredible team of students, and staff, and faculty who are here to answer all of your questions. And I know how overwhelming all of this information is. And so don't worry if you have questions later on or if you forgot something. You can always ask us, and we are more than happy to help you navigate. Especially with the virtual environment, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to try to navigate, you know, how things work, and everybody is very understanding of that. So please do ask us questions. The chat line is still open there today, so you can type in your questions there now, or you can get in touch with us by email or social media later on. That's fine too. But one of the great ways that you can have your future questions answered and to get a better sense in perhaps maybe a less high-pressured environment here is through the peer mentorship program. And so Roaha is helping to lead that initiative, and so she's going to talk to you about what that is.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk about the peer mentorship program, which is being offered in the fall to incoming first years. So the peer mentorship program is meant to provide an opportunity for first years to connect with upper year students in their program in order to help guide their transition. So the structure of the program is that first years will be split into groups, and each group will be assigned one peer mentor from the same program as them. So you all would be assigned a peer mentor who is also in ERS, and it will run for the first 6 weeks in the beginning of the fall semester. And it's meant to help provide a place for incoming students to connect with each other. And the peer mentors will also receive the necessary training for them to know how to serve your needs. So the different ways that your peer mentor will support you is by answering your questions, holding weekly virtual office hours, hosting different virtual events where you can connect with your mentor and your peers, and helping you connect with the different personal support services at the University of Waterloo, whether it's for academic or personal support, and sharing their experiences with transitioning to university to help guide your own transition and make it smoother.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Roaha. So I strongly recommend that you do sign up to become a, you know, to be part of a peer mentorship group. I know probably a lot of you are wondering, well, how on earth do I make friends? You know, that's usually one of the most important things about universities. You get to meet new people and exciting people. And trust me, I have, you know, these are some of the best students I've ever taught. And I have taught at different schools, and such dynamic students in so many ways. And so we really do want to make sure and help you connect with other students. And as you heard from Carla and Ishani, you know, the ERSSA is one of the best ways to do that. But we're also setting up this peer mentorship program, and that's to put you into small groups. You know, it's very low pressure. It's not a tutorial. You're not asked to do any schoolwork. In fact, it's a good place where you can ask questions like, you know, what's expected of me in university to do a university essay versus a high school essay? You know, they're different things. Or how much should I be studying? Or, you know, what's going on? I'm kind of not connected to any of the social things that's happening. How do I get more connected? Maybe within your peer mentorship group, a few of you might want to get together and do an online board game, or, you know, maybe you want to start up a study session and talk about certain things. Maybe you want to organize a coffee house or something like that. So there's a lot of things you can do that's very low pressure and just a good way to meet one another. So I really encourage you to get involved in the peer mentorship program. It's a great opportunity there. Now, the other things we have is actually, Jill, if you go back to the previous slide, If you haven't already got involved in Waterloo Ready, please do get involved in Waterloo Ready. We will post the link in this chat here to how you join the Waterloo Ready program. It also is a great way to just sort of prepare you for what's expected in terms of online learning. I know some of you have some questions about how does online learning work, and just how do you prepare for September. So if you haven't already gotten involved in Waterloo Ready, our Ask Us representative is going to post the link in the chat there for you. So thanks for that. And I also wanted to draw your attention to 2 videos that we have that are really highlighting some of the things that we do here in the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability. So we will also leave you with those links before we wrap up today's session. But I guess what I wanted to do right now is, I know some of you submitted questions ahead of time, so I do want to go through some of those, and I might put some of our panelists on the spot to answer some of those questions. And so I'm just going to go through the list of questions that some of you have. And the first question we had was, I will be purchasing a new laptop for university. Are there any computer specifications it will require? Well, I would probably say to that almost any laptop you're going to buy on the market right now is going to be more than you need for this program. I don't know, does any other students want to chime in about that? Ben, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when I got my laptop for university, it was super helpful for me to have one that had not just like the keyboard, but also the one that has like the number pad on the side and stuff, because sometimes it can, like if you're working with like data sets or something, or if you're or in stats, if you're working with Excel a lot, it can be really handy to not have all the numbers just like a row on the top, but also having like a keypad on the side where you can do stuff faster.
Okay, great. So there's some advice from Ben. Ishani, any thoughts on computers?
I would say that also be aware that they should be kind of smaller so they're easier to transport. And a lot of computers now, especially HP laptops, have like a large terabyte memory space, so consider doing that and getting a backup USB to save your notes on a hard drive. That's what I tend to do with my notes when I move to different classes or different years. I just keep my notes on a hard drive in case I need it, so you don't use up too much space at once.
Good, and that's also a good idea to back up your work, is quite often you don't want to lose one of your essays. So those are, if you're going to be thinking you're going to be doing a lot of sort of data analysis, you might want one with a number pad, but you can also get an external keyboard for when you're doing data input. So if you want to have a smaller one that's more portable, that's always an option too. So, but honestly, so, almost every laptop now has video capabilities, and so it's going to be fine probably no matter what you get. Okay, so what has online learning been like so far? So that's actually a really good question. I can tell you from a professor's perspective what it's been like so far. And actually, Jill, we can probably take that down because we're just going to have a chat now. So if you can take down the PowerPoint. From my perspective, what I have heard from students is that students have, in some cases, actually found that they have even more time than they usually do for their studies. So some students are actually doing some really deep learning during this time, partly because there hasn't been as many other things kind of distracting them, or they don't have to do a commute to campus. And so for some students, it's actually been a really enriching experience from an academic perspective. And now, obviously, socially, it's probably been more difficult for students because you don't get to hang out with your friends as much. But there has been, as you've heard, a lot of efforts like trivia nights, for example, to bring students together. Other students do find it more challenging if they have a busy household and there's lots going on in the background. And so one of the things that I have worked with my students is to try to be a bit more reflexive about, when is a good time to be doing your readings? When is a good time to be trying to do what space in your house works well, what doesn't? And I think, so there has to be what we call more meta learning, where you're reflecting on how you're learning. And you'll understand that in university, a lot of what we're trying to do is not simply to give you knowledge and information. You know, you can kind of go and Google things if you want to learn facts. We're trying to give you skills for learning in an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary way, and for learning how to become a learner. And so learning how to become a learner in a online learning environment is more difficult, but maybe because it's new, but it's actually going to be a skill that you have that you can take forward. So I think in that sense, it is a learning experience, a learning curve for all of us, but I know that our students are rising to the challenge. And I know that our professors are also trying to build in a bit more flexibility into the courses, into the syllabus, so that we can be more understanding about what you might be experiencing as students. So yeah, feel free. Is anyone taking a course right now online that they want to chime in?
Yeah, so Carla and I are both doing online learning this term. It has been a really significant difference from in-person learning. I personally don't love the online format, but there are a few benefits, like you can manage your time better. You can definitely getting an agenda is really important, so you can figure out when to do things, because like lectures are going to be recorded. They're not going to be like things you have to show up to. I would encourage also going to online office hours, because a lot of important conversations happen there as well. And just try to keep on top of things.
Yeah, to add on to that, I would just say it's really important to try to be self-motivated and reach out to the professors and the TAs. In the classes I've been taking, I haven't had any online office hours. So like every course is structured very differently. That's what I've been finding. Like I've taken 3 courses and the way they've been delivered has been widely different. So just keep that in mind. Like there might be big differences, and just reach out and make sure you're asking questions, because it can be harder to keep that connection with the staff. And I think it would be a good idea as well to make sure that you're scheduling social time in as well. You know, catch up with your friends from high school or with your new friends as well, just because this online way, like there's less going to class with your friends, obviously, and that kind of thing. So I would add that would probably make the learning experience a bit easier, because you have some downtime to just like balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah, what I like to do is, if I spend all day on the computer just doing like learning and things, I schedule a time to go for a walk, like with my dog, or just like go outside and experience nature. Yeah, it's really important, like, to keep your mental health in state too.
Great, thank you so much for that. So I forgot to mention that there was a question someone had about for international students. If you are an international student and you are going to be taking online courses, how does that work? So most of our courses will probably be done asynchronously, which means that they will be perhaps shorter videos of professors covering a specific issue or a PowerPoint. And then some of our courses might have a live component too. But what we ensure is that any student, no matter which time zone they're in, they will be able to have the course content that they need in order to succeed and be able to participate in the discussions of the course, whether it is live in person or through the online discussion forums. So most of our courses in the fall, you're going to be asynchronous, which means that you will basically be tuning in on your own time to participate in a lecture or a discussion forum or a group project. So we have definitely had that at the forefront of our mind. So if you are in a different time zone, we will make sure that works out for you. And so if you do have any concerns about that, please do get in touch with us, and we can walk you through in more detail how that will work. But there's really nothing you need to do. We are designing our courses assuming that we have students in different time zones, so not to worry about that. Okay, so we had some questions that I'm going to turn over to Patti. One was a question about how do you go about choosing a double major or a minor?
Okay, so if you're interested in doing a double major, the common ones that our students normally do are geography and biology, but there are many, many options. Basically, a double major means that you are doing the required courses in your second major. So ERS would be your first major, and your second major could be another discipline entirely. Quite often, if there is a thesis component, which there is in ERS in your final year, and a thesis component in the double major, you only would do one thesis, and that would count for both. So our students do that. Well, you cannot declare it actually until second year. You could speak definitely or contact the advisor in the double major plan that you're interested in. And I can also provide the list of advisors on campus if you wanted to contact them via email, just asking them about courses that you could begin in to begin a double major if you are interested in that. Also, the undergraduate calendar lists all the plans at the University of Waterloo, and that includes all the requirements for a second or double major. So you can certainly look at the undergrad calendar for all the requirements regarding majors, minors, etc. What else? Oh, transferring. If you wanted to transfer out of ERS to another plan of study, the minimum overall average, so that would be the average of all courses on your record, would have to be at least 70%, but you would definitely check with the alternative plan that you're thinking of transferring to, as they might have a higher average required, but 70%, which is our major average requirement, would be the minimum to transfer to a new plan. In terms of averages, for our students to be in good standing, you must have an overall average of 65%, and that includes all courses on record. And that must be 65% every term to remain in good standing. And your major average is comprised of your ERS prefix courses and your EMVS prefix courses. That's your major average, and that must be 70% every term. Again, your averages include all courses on record, and they must be met every term to remain in good standing.
Great. Thank you so much, Patti. So there was a question we had about sort of what are some of the academic pressures that ERS students have. Like all students, there are academic pressures, right? You're going to have deadlines. You're going to have to keep on top. There's not going to be a teacher there telling you, oh, you have something due tomorrow, next day. You're going to have to keep on top of when you have things due. You're going to have to self-pace yourself so that you're doing your readings ahead of time and studying for quizzes ahead of time and starting up on your essays. You also have to try to learn where the resources are to help you. So your professors, for example, are not really there to help you with the writing mechanics. They might help you to think of some ideas, and they might help you in office hours to kind of think through your assignments. But we have special resources on campus called the Writing Center who are specialists in writing. And so when it comes to the actual writing mechanics, you'll have to know to go to the Writing Center, which are available to you virtually. And the same goes for the library. So your professor can help maybe point you in the direction of maybe where you can get some information for your papers, and they will, but at the same time, the librarians are experts in trying to understand where information is and to help you get that for your essay. So a lot of university, again, is learning how to learn and learning how to use different resources, how to use your teaching assistant, right? How do you go to them as sort of the initial spot when you have questions about the course in terms of the assignments and things like that. So there's a lot of different people, and we do all have online presence. So there will be online office hours, or you can always make an appointment with your professor virtually. Same goes with your teaching assistants, the librarians or the writing center, the student success office, the and online counseling, the peer mentorship. So you're starting to hear that there's a whole entire network of people here to help you succeed. But the key in all of that is that you also have to take the initiative to first understand where these resources are, who they are, and to reach out to us. So that's a little different than high school, where maybe it's a bit more contained in terms of the people that are there to help you in terms of your teachers and perhaps your guidance counselor. So and I do have a question here about labs and how will labs be completed online. So there's different approaches to that. So there's some virtual approaches, there's some do your own hands-on approaches in your own backyard or in a park or something like that. So the labs will take place. And not to worry, our professors and the ecology lab are working hard to make sure that you can do that safely in terms of it being a virtual experience, or if and when the university is ready to have students back on campus in some form or another, then obviously we will transition into a safe learning environment when that happens. So I'm not sure in terms of, the other thing I want to mention in terms of the academic pressures is that your peers are there to support you. And, I'm not sure about other programs, but I really don't find that ERS is a competitive program in the sense that students are not competing with each other to try to get a grade. That's not actually how professors grade. I think there's a misperception. There used to be something maybe it's in Hollywood where there's like a bell curve, and so, but that doesn't exist here really. What we do is we give you your grades based upon what your effort is or what your ideas are. And so the more help you can get from one another, it's actually a positive sum game, so which means that you're helping each other is actually going to improve all of your marks. And so I'm always really excited when I hear students trying to challenge one another and to help one another. And that's really what it's all about in terms of learning. Learning, I think, is a very social experience. And so I just wanted to emphasize that it really is a cooperative experience here. And the more you can work with your peers and help each other, the better you all will do. I do have another question here in terms of the types of careers that you might get out of a program like this. And I do have a very exhaustive list of all of the careers that our alumni have, so I could send that to you if you're interested, get in touch with me. But it's needless to say that we have people coming from our program going into all different fields. We have people going into various government agencies and departments. At the federal, provincial, or regional governments or municipal governments. We have entrepreneurs who have started their own businesses working to solve some of the problems that we have. We have people going into law. We have people going into become teachers. We have people becoming consultants, going into all of the different types of environmental consulting firms that do a number of different things, both to meet regulatory standards or environmental impact assessment or ecological restoration. And one thing I'll say is that, if you are concerned about how do you get a career coming out of this program, I'd strongly recommend that you do some of the diplomas that we have. For example, the ecological restoration diploma. We have experts, we have world experts, in fact, in ecological restoration who can help you to understand, like, the entire tar sands, for example, is by law has to be reverted back to some sort of ecosystem. And so that's a lot of work, and ecological restoration is what's involved in doing that, or reclaiming mines that have terminated and things like this. So there's a lot of work that can be done. And a lot of students also go into grad studies and do further studies. So I think that this program is critically important for our generation of students to really take because of the problems that the world's facing. Even if you don't end up going into the environmental field, it's going to make you a better community member, a better family member, And so that itself, I think, is really important. But there are really exciting careers, I think, that come out of this program as well. So I do want to wrap up quickly or soon, because we've been with you now for over an hour. So I just want to make sure that we have captured there was a question about textbooks, and will there still be textbooks? Those types of things are course dependent, but we do keep in mind that students are learning virtually, so we try to adapt our courses to that. For example, in my case, I was actually able to get the online textbook free for all of my students this semester. Other professors might move to journals in online articles if it's too hard to get textbooks. But we also have the bookstore who is working as usual to get you your textbooks, so you can order your textbooks through that if a hard copy is necessary. I think that probably covered most of the questions. If there was a question about volunteering in Waterloo, there are a lot of different opportunities to volunteer here in Kitchener-Waterloo. Probably the best thing to do there is talk with your professors and also the Student Success Office and some of the other students that you meet, and find out what they're getting involved in. There's all sorts of different things you could be doing here in terms of green volunteering. I want to emphasize that there's a lot happening on campus too. Ben mentioned the sustainability living labs that we have, and so there's all sorts of great things going on in campus as well to do green volunteering. So there's no shortage of opportunities to get more involved in clubs, activities, and volunteering. So if there's any more questions, please do post them in the chat, or if I somehow missed your question, please do post that in the chat. Like I said, the number one takeaway from today's session, I hope, is that to know we have an entire team here willing and ready and able to answer all of your questions and give you any support you need as you make the transition, not only from high school to university, but a particular type of online learning environment that might be different than what we've been used to in years past. So I do want to very much welcome you to the School of Environment, Resource and Sustainability community. And I also want to just finally encourage you that if you have not yet enrolled in the Waterloo Ready course, that is on a platform that we call Learn, and we will send you a link here in the chat to help you connect to the Waterloo Ready in case you have not yet already connected. That's a great way to answer questions such as how do you maintain focus and avoid distractions during remote learning? How do you prepare for organizing your classes? What do you do before, during, after lectures? How do you engage in content? There's a sample lecture there from your faculty, and understanding sort of how much time is expected of you for studying, how to manage your time, how to have a work-life balance, and how to get the support that you need as you need it. So please do log into your Learn. And if you're having any trouble sort of accessing any of these resources, please get in touch, email Patti, myself, or anybody, and we will direct your question to the right person to make sure that you can get your questions answered. So that does bring us to the end of our time. Again, for those parents and supporters, there are some live chats coming up on August 5th and 11th, and so we'll send you a link here just to remind you of that link for the parents and supporters to tune in. We have some monthly newsletters coming your way. And I just wanted to ask the panelists if there's anything I might have missed before we wrap things up.
Try to get your textbooks used if you can. That's my only other thing.
Yeah, be sustainable about it.
That's a good idea. I bought most of my textbooks used. You can oftentimes wait until the course begins, until you get the syllabus. You can find out what you'll need. But if you want to get a jump on your reading, then you can probably get in touch at the bookstore. Might already tell you what you need. Or you could even get in touch with the professor for the syllabus if you want to get a jump on your readings. But if you do have a textbook, yeah, get it used. It helps save trees, and it's a little bit cheaper, so why not? Great.
I just have one thing to add. The course outlines for our courses are online. The fall term ones aren't there yet. We're in the process of posting those. However, you can look at ones from years past, and you can get an idea about, for instance, how ERS 100 runs during the term, if you wanted to have a look at that now.
Great. So yeah, so you can get a sense of past years and what was done. There might be some changes. There probably will be to future syllabi, but it's a good opportunity to see sort of what's expected of you and to start preparing yourself that way. And again, Waterloo Ready is a great way to get a better understanding of what's expected of you. So I will stay on for about another 5 minutes. In case any of you have questions, I'll be here just to answer your questions. More than happy to talk with you and or your parents and supporters. But this formally brings us to an end of our live chat session. It's been really exciting to talk with all of you. And thank you again to all of our panelists for tuning in today and sharing your expertise and experiences in the School of Environment, Resource, and Sustainability. I really look forward to meeting you all, both virtually and eventually in person in the future. So thanks very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.